Last week, we lost a Driftwood resident who has been a resident for, I know, probably 40 years, maybe even more. Al Borg. Al and his wife Marcy have been very active in the Driftwood community, the Booster Club, of course, a while back. Al was 73, had a stroke, and passed away. So if you would keep the Borg family and Marcy in your prayers. Thank you.
Councilman Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also would like to ask for prayers for Mr. John B. Hall, a lifelong resident of the Lincoln Manor subdivision that went on to glory on Saturday. And I ask for your prayers for his family and for Mr. Hall. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilman Hand, will you lead us in the prayer?
Sure. May we bow our heads, Father and Son, Holy Spirit. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this beautiful day and for everyone who is gathered here today. We come to you asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Fill us with your grace, Lord God, as we gather to make decisions for our community of our great city of Kenner. May we use only our best skills and judgment, keeping ourselves impartial and neutral as we consider the merits and pitfalls of each matter that is placed before us. May you guide us to always act in accordance with what is best for our community and our fellow citizens. Continue to remind us that all that we do here today, all that we accomplish, is for the pursuit of truth, for the greater glory of you, Lord, and for the service of humanity. We ask these things in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Councilmember Carroll, will you lead us in the pledge?
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum this evening. In accordance with Council Resolution Number B14550, please be advised that all cellular telephones, pagers, beepers, and other devices of this nature must be deactivated or silenced throughout the council meeting. Under the consent agenda this evening, we have item 1, approval of minutes, the council meeting of March 22nd, 2018. Item 2 is approval of alcoholic beverage permit applications. We have none. Item 3 is approval of bingo and public gathering applications. We have none. Item 4 is correspondence, reports from the mayor, CAO, or department heads. Item 4A, at the request of the administration, a report from Mayor Zahn.
Mayor Zahn, you have the floor.
Thank you, Council Chairman. Just want to talk a little bit about code enforcement this evening. We all know that we have a fantastic code department, like all of our other numerous departments, but obviously code is out there every day doing the work that needs to be done to make sure that the city stays away from blight and is obviously aesthetically pleasing. Code has identified over this fiscal year 23 demos. We have spent city money on 6 of those demos. The rest were done by the owners, which avoided a lien on the property by the city of Kenner toward that owner, and also it was cheaper for our commercial or residential property owners, which we try to help them as much as we can, but at the same time, make sure that the blighted property is taken down. We also have slated 20 more demos throughout the city of Kenner. So that right there, before I give you the next statistics, shows that the code department, like I said, like other departments, is definitely doing their job on how we're addressing blight throughout the city. And obviously you have a blighted piece of property on the agenda tonight, which is something that Councilman Klein supports, along with the administration and other council people that I've spoken to, some of you all, that's something that needs to be addressed for the Hollywood Theater. Hopefully y'all will take that into consideration, what we're doing for our residents and also our other business owners that don't have blighted property. 2 more facts on code right now. We've heard in the past that, Kenner is dying. I continue to say that Kenner is not dying. Kenner is moving forward. We have over $2 million that have come in to our accounts through licensing fees. We have over $1 million in permit fees. That shows that Kenner is moving ahead. Obviously, it's going to take a little while to catch back up because we've had some slow times throughout the city of Kenner, but that shows that Code is doing their part on demos. Code is also receiving that funding that's coming in because business is being attracted, and obviously permits for building homes besides businesses is being attracted, with over $3 million coming into our city. With that, any questions? Thank you, Council Chairman.
Councilman Carroll.
Okay, got it. Thank you, Mr. President. I'd just like to comment and piggyback on the mayor's comments about the support from the administration and the support from the code department for individuals who for whatever reason, put themselves or their family is in a challenging position as it relates to the properties. We've been able to work with the families, so the cost that they occur is not as high if the city or administration got involved. We've been able to work with them, and not only to help the family, but I guess it's twofold, because there are a couple of organizations, a couple of individuals in the district that actually do this type of work with demolitions, particularly within the Lincoln Manor subdivision. So along with the code, just to make sure everything done is proper and safe, the individuals won't lose their property. The companies that live in the District 1 area are able to make a living, to make money helping the whole situation. So the code department, the administration, the families that this involves, everybody are on the same page. And this is our first move. Listen, we never want to go in with the attitude that we don't want the family to be whole. Obviously, we have to maintain from a safety aspect, but it is good to know that when we can do something to alleviate blight, and we can also help the families maintain the property for further use and get the support from code to help the people, that's a win-win situation. So I thank the code department for that, thank the administration, thank all the council for being understanding as it relates to personal properties for 1, 2, 3 different generations in some cases, particularly in District 1, us being the oldest district, councilmatic district, we will obviously have older homes. So we and the families anticipate and appreciate the empathy and the concern that is shown by the administration and code. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilman Reyno, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mayor, thank you for that report on blight, and just want to make sure that I'm correct. 6 properties were the number of properties that Kenner actually had to fund the demolition for. Is that correct?
With liens on the property, yes.
Right. So the city will recoup that money when that property is sold.
Correct.
And do we have a dollar amount of what the city has expensed in demoing those 6 properties? It doesn't have to be exact. If you could give me a ballpark, and if you don't have it, maybe Mr. Walters would know what that cost, because I'm sure he's the one that issued the.
About $60,000.
So our average demo costs about $10,000, and we lien the property, and whenever that property is sold or put back into commerce or whatever, that's when the city would recover that $10,000. And I have a question for the legal department. How does that work when they lien? Is that also incurs interest, and is there any other additional cost that the city gets back when that property is sold and put back into commerce and that lien is paid?
I don't think so. I think that the city would get the amount of its lien. I don't think it's like property taxes,
Okay.
where, interest accrues, or tax sale where interest would accrue. But keep in mind, if it becomes an adjudicated property, so if the property's sold in that manner, the city wouldn't get the full value of its lien. If it's sold in, a private sale, arm's length transaction, then we would. But I guess it would depend on our rank and what the property sold for. It depends, each case is different.
But once the property's liened, once the building is demolished, the property's liened by the city can ask for that property to be sold at auction, or no?
No, I mean, no. If the property is sold at a tax sale and then that tax sale is never redeemed, the property can become adjudicated to the city, and properties are sold by auction if they're adjudicated to the city. But I don't think that's the situation that we're talking about.
I just wanted to, try to get an understanding and let the audience hear, how that works, that, when we demo a property, it actually costs we, the taxpayers, money, but we do recover that money at some point whenever that property is sold. And I have one other question for the finance department. What is budgeted in this year's budget for demolition?
This year is $150,671.
And so we've used about 60,000 of the 150. We have 90,000 remaining.
This year, we've used roughly 45,000, so you have 82,568 left. Some of it
Okay.
could have flowed from last fiscal year.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Next, Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir. I have a motion by Councilmember DeFranchis, seconded by Councilmember Wilmot on the consent. Please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0.
Okay.
Under the public appearance agenda this evening, we have item 9, public hearings for final passage. Item 9A is a public hearing regarding summary ordinance number 12,348, an ordinance amending the City of Kenner Unified Development Code sections 7.11 and 5.04 regarding the storage of recreational vehicles and recreational watercraft. I have a motion by Councilmember Segur, seconded by Councilmember Hand, to open the public hearing. Council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address the council on this matter? Please come forward.
So,
Lady Graham?
name and address, Mr. Taft.
My name is Greg Camp, live at 3720 West Layover Drive, Kenner. I am here to support 9A as written, and I would hope that the council is going to vote on 9A as written. The thing that I want to emphasize is that in the very beginning, when this first came up, I brought forward that this came about because there were bad boat owners or that were not even adhering to the rules at the time, and code enforcement wasn't really enforcing the code for those dilapidated boats or vehicles that didn't operate. 9A, if you use common sense, takes care of all that, because 9A doesn't do away with what's in code. There still are parking restrictions. There still are restrictions of how that boat or watercraft has to be maintained, which does really what Kenner needs. So I'm asking that we support, as the council, 9A is written, and let us enforce the code, and we won't have the problems of boats being parked illegally or parked across the grass or parked across in front of the house, and they must be licensed, because all that is in the code already. And I think that the common sense is that would prevail anyway, because it takes care of itself, because it's legal. And you've got an operational vehicle. That's all I have to say on it. Yes.
Go ahead, Councilman Reno, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Teff, I just have one question for you. I know y'all are in favor of 9A. If 9A included a provision that should the property owner have access to the backyard, would you be in favor of that, for lack of better words, an amendment to this document saying that y'all would be okay if a property owner had a 100-foot lot and their house was 60 foot and they had, 20 feet on each side and they had access to park the trailer or the boat behind that property or a camper or whatever it is, would you be in favor of that or not in favor of it?
I'm not in favor of it if that is an alternative. And let me explain why. What you're doing is you're saying you're placing a restriction, and in some cases, that restriction may not work for some people. An example would be if you have in the back of your home a canopy that you built some time ago, it would not allow anything to go back there. The other thing is again, common sense. Common sense is what happened into Chateau is because somebody did not take care of them. They went against the establishment in Chateau and got away with it. In other words, they showed a picture of a boat in the front, across the front of the house, sitting on the median, basically, just between the sidewalk and the road. In code, that was not acceptable under the previous code. And we feel like we got put into this because there were some bad owners out there that did not abide by the rules. We're saying we want to abide by the rules. And we want code enforcement to make sure that those rules are abided by. Because for us, having that is a privilege, just like driving your car. It's a privilege for me to have my boat. And I don't want to take away from anything from anybody, but I understand Chateau's concern based on the pictures. That provision doesn't really solve that. It just puts a Band-Aid on it, because now you're going to punish somebody that may not have the ability, when, the way it's written now, everyone is treated fairly. The only thing you're doing is you're saying, now it's going to be on code enforcement to make sure that the codes, that other codes that govern vehicles or things that are parked in your house or the way your house, the driveway, the greenage around your house, all those things are already in place. And if we enforce what's in place, amendment like that wouldn't be needed because you're going to deal with it up front.
Okay.
That amendment is only if the council feels, because the vote for that amendment, to me, is saying, I don't have confidence in code enforcement to make sure all the rules are enforced, so now we're going to make this provision so we make it easy. But we don't need to do that. Code enforcement can do their job. They know what they're doing.
Thank you.
And we don't need to put a bunch of Band-Aids here and there to have them enforce it. All we need to do is, again, use a common sense approach, and that is, why, you got a 24-foot already on there, so that means it's not going to be able, you can't have anything big. It can't cross the sidewalk. It's got to fit in the driveway. It's got to fit where it can't impede upon or encroach upon the driveway or across the sidewalk. You already have it.
Thank you, Mr. Taft.
Thank you, Mr. Taft.
Councilman Klon, do you have a question for Mr. Taft?
Yes. Suppose the definition would be recreational watercraft may be parked or stored in front of the front lawn of the building of the principal structure unless another area of the lot is accessible for storage of the recreational watercraft and the lot provides adequate space for it. And they define accessible as the ability to enter and exit a lot without requiring any modifications to the existing lot. In other words, if you have a fence up on the side of your house, you can still keep your boat in front of your house. Also, adequate space means just that, an open area that exists behind the building line of the lot. So if you have a fence around your house, you don't have adequate space to put it because adequate space is defined as an open area, and also it's not accessible because you have a fence up. Would you have any problems with that being amended in non-A?
If I was code enforcement, I'd have a hard time with it Because now you're telling me I've got exceptions that I've got to go back and look at. I've got to deal with making sure that that they couldn't do what you're saying, that something keeps them, that fence is there, or this is there. That means that, yeah, they get a complaint and they go out there, but now you're taking up some time that may be unnecessary. And
Well-
again, common sense. Why would you want it on the back or the side? Because if it's maintained, and if it's not crossing the sidewalk or onto the sidewalk, you're not really hurting anything, and it still is not a bad scene. What's bad is something that's falling apart.
Well, based on those definitions and that wordage, if you have a fence around your house, you don't have to put your boat on the side of your house, you can keep it in the front. That's what I'm asking you. Would you have any objections to that language being in there? Everybody, and let me tell you, we had 9 meetings with you and the other gentleman up there, went to most of them, attended most of them. We let everybody speak, and that seemed to be acceptable to everybody is, hey, you can keep your boat, you can keep your boat. Everybody that's got boats can keep their boat unless they got a big lot and it's open on the side and they have sufficient space to put it there between the building line and the fence. Would you have any objections to that? It seems like to me that code knows their job. They know what to enforce, what not to enforce. We don't have any complaints with or against code saying, code's interpreting this the wrong way, or he's got exceptions to it. There's always exceptions in the law, in ordinance, always. But this is pretty clear that if you have a fence around your house, you won't have to put your boat on the side of your house. You have any problems with that language?
The language, I don't. The concept, I do. Because I think what you need, again, it needs to be one way and simple. Right now, to keep it one way and simple, think about what code enforcement has to do. First of all, if there's a boat in the driveway, that they already have to make sure that that boat is licensed. It has the wildlife and fisheries sticker on it, because that means that it's being used. It has to be in good condition. Can't have any flat tires. So, by adding language like that, you're just adding something on top of something that doesn't need to be done. Because if the boat is maintained and like it's supposed to be, code enforcement can visually spot that quickly. But now, if the other way, they're going to have to get out, and they're going to have to go to that, look at that fence, or look at that, do we make the exception for them? And I just think that you're calling for a lot of unnecessary steps. Because the whole idea behind the boat ordinance came about because you had bad citizens that weren't even adhering to the previous code. Now we have code that is up and at them. They're doing more. They're getting more accomplished. They're finding more people, finding more people, which means that it's starting to work. That will take care of the boat, whether it's parked in the front, the back, or what have you. But you're adding something else for them to look at, is all I'm saying.
Okay, Mr. Taft.
We
well beyond our time. Councilman Klon, do you have any other questions?
No, that's all. I think you were addressing whether the boat was in use or not and whether it had a proper license or not, as opposed to where it should be stowed or parked. And I'm asking you if it's an open lot on the side, do you have any problems or objections to people being required to park their boats on the side of their house behind the building line? Can you answer that yes or no for me?
No.
Thank you.
Name and address, Mr. Horner.
Mr. Chairman, if
Ed
you
Horner,
would,
616 Ronson Drive.
if you would allow me, sir.
Hold 1 second.
As a courtesy, the
Yes,
city
ma'am.
attorney and the council tonight, I'd just like to remind everyone that we have a 3-minute rule. Whenever the public is addressing, they're allowed 3 minutes to speak. I will set the timer. If a council member is addressing, I will stop the timer and then give the time back to you, just as a courtesy, just as a friendly reminder to everyone. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So we do have some time.
And there'll be 5 people for and 5 people against. So if you could kind of gather together and kind of figure out who's for and who's against. The council will allow 5 for and 5 against. Okay? Against the ordinance. 9A, yes, sir.
Go ahead, Mr. Horner.
The impression I get is that if the amendment is adopted, it has changed 9A to 9B. The zoning board liked 9A and did not recommend 9B. There must be a reason behind that. A good government is one that passes the laws that are the least restrictive ordinances on the population it represents. I firmly believe in that, and that is good governance. I'm urging the board to accept the 9A resolution with no amendments, and I can only speak that this is the feeling for the voters that I represent, but I can tell you personally that anyone who votes for this amendment, I will work my hardest, if I'm still alive in 4 years, to make sure you're not reelected. I'm very strongly opposed to any further restrictions on the voting ordinance whatsoever. The only amendment I think would be tolerable is to disregard the entire section for the ordinances governing storage of property on your front lawn. It is our private property. It is something the United States government gave us years ago. Thank you very much for your time. Goodbye.
Thank you, Mr. Horner. Next, name and address, please.
Chris Willard, 3518 Colorado Avenue. I am for 9A, the way it's written. I do not want amendments to it. I don't have the room to put a boat on the side of my house, but I shouldn't be, you know, if I bought a bigger house and if I had the room, I would put it there, okay? But it should be straight up for everybody. The mayor's talking about code enforcement, I agree with him. They come out, they should be taking care of the problems that we have. But I got a crazy lady that lives on my street. I think she loves code enforcement. I mean, they sit there with her and drink Cokes, and then she sends them to all the houses down my street. The day I make her mad, and the guy comes out and the code enforcement guy comes out and measures and say, you have 6 inches, you have to do it. I don't want that in code enforcement's hands to make that decision. I want a flat rule equal for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Willard. Next, name and
My
address.
name's Dennis Bergeron, 909 Ronson Drive. I support Amendment A without any additions, okay? I moved in Ronson Drive not 40 years ago. They had cows in the backyard walking on the levees, okay? I have a garage in my backyard, okay? The Duncan Canal is behind my house. There's grass back there. Now, across the street on Lincoln Manor side, they've got a nice blacktop, okay? So you're saying I'm gonna take my $30,000 boat and drive it on this grass and get all ruts and everything on the levee, okay, to try to squeeze it in my backyard. But I got a garage back there, it won't fit. I also have a $30,000 motorcycle, which is in a enclosed trailer because Aaron Broussard flooded me out in 2005, okay? I had a garage. Now I'm 5 foot off the ground. How am I supposed to put my boat or my motorcycle in my garage? You know, I went ahead at my expense and paved a nice area, and I have everything laid out to where it's clean, neat, my boat's kept up, my trailer's enclosed, because I don't want to ruin my motorcycle. You know, and I just don't think it's fair to say, okay, to have somebody who can determine if you could put something behind your house. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bergeron. Next, name and address.
Fred Miller, 4005 Delaware. I'm for 9A, but if it means y'all won't vote for it, I really don't have a big problem if they put it behind their house, if they can. But if they can't, you can't make them do it. And the code enforcement, what they brought up was a good point too. How are they going to determine that? And that's going to be subject to the person to go out there and do the measuring and take up time and effort and energy. So I don't see why that should be amended, but that's all I got to say. Oh, and one more question. Is this going to be something that's going to be permanent when it's voted on, or can another council come along 5 years from now and we have to go through all this again? Anybody going to answer that? Is it going to be permanent?
Go ahead, Councilman Reyno.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, any council and any ordinance can be amended, and it can be amended at any time, whether it be 5 years from now, 10 years from now. An ordinance have been amended. So, yes, it could. So, you know, the question that I asked Mr. Teff, who was the first speaker, was, you know, basically, you know, there are some people that believe that the recreational vehicles, if the lot is available, should be parked behind the front line of the house, if it's available.
Right.
So if you have a house and you have a 70-foot wide lot and you have 25 feet on the side of your house that's non-obstructed, there's no fence, there's no nothing, it's just a vacant piece of property there on the side of your house that big, the question would be, would you have an objection if this ordinance was amended to say, if you have that much space, then we would ask that you park that vehicle? So, you know, and I get it. Y'all want to keep your boats, and I believe you should keep your boats. And I believe you should have them, and if they parked on the driveway and you don't have access behind your house, that's the way it should be. But there are some people that were complaining, so in order to compromise with everybody, you could say, well, yeah, if you got 25 feet on the side of the house that's not being used for anything, it's just vacant, make the amendment. And look, I'm not proposing this amendment, but it's been talked about with council members here about possibly amending it. And I said, I want to hear what the people have to say before I vote on it. So that was the reason for my question in the beginning was, you know, if you have the property, let's say you own 2 lots, your lot and another lot. So now you have a whole bunch of property. Would you be against amending this ordinance this legislation to say, yeah, no, if you have that much space, you know, you can put it on the side of the house? And that was my only question, so.
I really don't have a problem with it, but obviously there are a lot of people that do. But then again, it don't affect me. I can't put mine back there no matter what.
Right.
So I'm saying something that I'm probably speaking out of turn because it's not going to affect me one way or the other.
That was my only question, so. And yes, it could be amended later on, so even if it's not amended now, another council could come back later and amend it, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman
Thank you.
Reyno. Councilman Klein, do you have a question?
I was just going to cover the same issue as Councilman Reyno with Mr. Miller. But I think he answered it. I think he answered it, Mr. Morello.
Oh, y'all done? Y'all ready
Yeah,
for me
we're done
now?
with him.
Councilman Segura, you have a question?
Oh, well, just a follow up on Councilman Reyno. Yes, any future council members can take and undo or change, but as you have seen, and we'll get into that in a few minutes, anything to do with the UDC must follow the same path that we had to take. And as you know, we had to stop a month or 2 ago and go with the path of the Planning Zoning Board path. So anything that comes up is not just an ordinance to change. It has to go through that path and have plenty of time for opportunity for public speaking. So it's just not an ordinance to change, it's process.
Thank you, Councilman Segura. Name and address.
Al Morella, 4260 East Loyola Drive, 5th District, 46 years. This is totally unacceptable to me. I've stated it when it first surfaced, and the only thing that would be acceptable to me is that
you amend the existing ordinances you have on the books that deals with junk and debris. And if the boat don't have the proper stickers, the proper tags on it, it's derelict. There's no need for any new ordinances when we already have ordinances on the books that just needs to be amended. As far as amending 9A, that's a loophole. That would put a loophole in this thing as far as I'm concerned. So it's totally unacceptable to me. I don't accept it. The only way I would is if you would amend the existing ordinances you have on the books now, I'll repeat again, to include derelict boats. To all due respect to the previous speakers, I haven't heard one of them talk about the utility trailer owners in this city. Not at all. Just talk about the boats. People, we have to talk about everyone in this city who's going to be impacted by this. This is not just about people who own boats. This is about people who own utility trailers as well. We got to think about all of us. Don't make this a divisive issue, man. I don't have a dog in this hunt. I don't have a boat, and I don't have a utility trailer, and don't ever plan on having none. So it's not about me. It's about the citizens of Kenner. And I'm totally opposed to it, and I'll be opposed to it until you can come up with what I just stated. Anybody got any comments, any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Leave some time for the next speaker.
Name and address, sir.
Roberto Pelez, 3108 Indiana Avenue. I am for 9A as it's written. We've been talking about this for over a year, and I know this idea has been brought up, and no one really wanted it. No one really brought it up before to talk about it that much at some of these 9 meetings that we had with the civic associations and stuff. So I'm kind of surprised y'all bringing this up now to try to amend it. You know, to me, it's kind of funny, but I'm for 9A as it's written. Thank you.
Oh, wait, don't go off.
Councilman Klein?
Thank you. Can I ask you a question? Councilman Segura, Councilman Wilmot, and myself had 9 meetings with the different citizens of Kenner and the associations, and we brought this issue up on a number of occasions about, you know, if you live in a district where they have smaller houses, you're having your boat, you use your boat, it's properly licensed, it's not a storage unit, then you can keep your boats. We've told everybody that. We're trying to put in here an amendment. We don't know if we're going to do it or not, but trying to put in an amendment which says that if you have a lot wide enough and you have open space in order to put your boat, I don't think it's an imposition for you to put your boat on the side of the house up to the building line. And I thought we had, most people agreed to do that so long as their boat wasn't taken away. And we told them at the first meeting, wait a minute. We're not trying to take anybody's boat away, whether you got a big house or a small house. But if you got a house that's large enough for you to put it on the side, all this amendment does, if it goes forward, is to say that you have to put it on the side of your house. You still have the other requirements that it can't be used as a storage unit. It's got to be
Call the meeting back to order.
okay.
Councilman Klein, I think you had the floor.
Yes. You recall my question? My question was, if you have a lot that's large enough and, number one, you have an open space, number two, it's accessible. If you have a fence around your house, it's not accessible. Would you have any problems with us saying, homeowner, you have to put your boat only behind your building line? You don't have to put it in your backyard. You just have to put it, like all the other vehicles, behind the building line. Would you have any problems with that?
If we can get this over with tonight, I probably won't have a problem with that, okay? But this has just been dragging on way too long. And like Mr. Reynard said, he's here to listen to what the people said. I haven't heard anybody for the amendment here yet. But I'd like to get this over with.
So you would agree with that if your house is large enough and your lot's large enough, it's accessible and it's open only, open and accessible, that you have to put it on the side of your lot up to the building line, which may not be that far from the sidewalk. Would you have any objections to that? We can get that over with tonight.
Well, I'd like to say, can I get a vote from y'all to see who was for and against it now?
We can't.
You can't vote early.
Just to raise a hand. I mean, yeah. So, no, I'm not for that, so.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions, Councilman Klein?
No, that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, name and address, please.
How you doing? My name's Robert Levy. I'm 3909 Arkansas Avenue. And I just want to say I'm for 9A. I'm not for an amendment. And I understand, I went to every meeting that they had, and I understand that this amendment is basically for Chateau Estates, that they can't enforce their covenants. And look, if the Chateau wants them behind the line, that's fine and dandy and great with me. But I think we're shooting ourselves in the foot, because you're saying, okay, if a man has a fence and he can't get it to his backyard, then what's to stop a man from saying, okay, I'm gonna put up a fence here, and put up a fence, and then he can still put it in front of his house? So, you see what I'm saying? I mean, we're shooting ourselves in the foot by saying, if it's a fence or anything. I think we just need to go with giving everybody the same opportunity to put it in their driveway. Because if you got a bad egg in there and he wants to keep it in front of his house, what's gonna stop him from building a fence and put it in front of his house? Are you gonna?
As long as he applies or complies with the ordinance, there's nothing code can do about it.
Right.
I'm just asking you a simple question. If your lot has to be accessible, it has to be large enough for you to put your boat on the side of your house behind the building lot, would you have any objections to that, and if so, why?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm trying to tell you. I don't have a problem with it. But what I'm saying is, the guy who does have a problem with it, who has a big gate on the side of his house, what's to stop him from putting up a fence and then saying, okay, now I'm going to keep it in my driveway?
Nothing.
So that's what I'm saying. So to me, the amendment doesn't make any sense.
If the amendment was
That's just
put in-
my opinion.
I understand. Well, I respect your opinion. Do you have your boat in front of your house?
Yes, I do, and I don't have access to the backyard.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Levy. Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. I have a motion by Councilmember Segura, seconded by Councilman Hand, to close the public hearing. Council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0 to close your hearing. I have a motion by Councilmember Segura, seconded by Councilmember Hand, for approval.
Councilman Segura, you have the floor.
Thank you, Council President. Okay, well, thank you all for your comments. As you know, this journey started a little close to a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, and we've traveled the city. We've had you come, or you've come to the meetings and let us know your views, and I'm clear that what they are, and I certainly hope the rest of my colleagues are. But first, I want to give due credit to everybody up here, every council member up here. I know Councilman Klein refers to the committee, which was him, Councilman Wilmot, and myself, but Councilwoman DeFrances came to just about all of those meetings also and participated with us, so she should not be left out as being part of those discussions. So we all listened to everything that each of the civic groups and communities that we went to had to say, and I got the message. So, you know, this is where we're at. I apologize, as I did a little over a month and a half ago when we thought we were ready to vote, and due to the legal process to get it done properly, we had to pull it off and then let it go through our Planning and Zoning Board, get their recommendations, which obviously y'all are aware, this legislation was recommended by the Planning and Zoning Board. So they're both up tonight, and this is the one that's up for discussion right now. So I believe that and hope that this is the one that should be passed, and the other one fade away. So again, I know other council members probably want to speak, so I'll come back at closing and close, but I do certainly want to make sure that you all understand how much I, and I'm sure the others, appreciate your involvement in this civic process to come, let us know your views on this topic, and allow us to work through it, and then hopefully come to a resolution that will put this in a better position. So I'm going to yield for others right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Segur. Councilman Carroll, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. And just to piggyback on Councilman Segura, thank everyone for their participation. This has been going on, I guess, a year or more for everyone to be involved, and it goes to show how much compassion and passion that people have about their properties, about their movable properties, and about just the law in general, whether it relates to the city of Kenner. Going through this journey, looking at the information, the planning committee and everyone, we got down to one or two. We had to digest it, read it, try to see what made sense, what didn't make sense, along with the committees, and I think everyone did that. I will just, full disclosure, I will be supporting the first one, and mostly because of I think one of the gentlemen said that to come tonight and to be able to start talking about something, in my opinion, catches me off guard. I'm not a code person. It took me a while to understand the different ordinances and make a decision. So I will be supporting A, because I think to come now, even if it seems as if it's a little change that we may want to input today, it is something that I'm sure next week it will be something that someone didn't think about, and we'll have to revisit it. This way, we've looked at this and we have a pretty good understanding of this. So I think it would behoove us to move forward with either A or B, whichever anyone wants to do. But to start adding amendments to it, I think would just cloud it. And to be honest, to the code department, I think it would be an enforcement nightmare for the guys, because they are people, and to be able to interpret it from the river to the lake, people doing it, there are going to be different interpretations about it. So why put them in that position? This cut and dry, if it's this color, if it's this length, if it's this height, this is how we have to do it, and they can move on to the next thing. To put them in a position to start determining what is this and what is that, I promise you it's going to be different regulations, enforced differently from one district to the next, and we shouldn't put those guys in that position. I think the code department does a great job. I think we need more in code department. That's another story. But what we have today is what we have to work with. So that is why I believe it's important, to be able to support this tonight, get this going, and then who knows what's going to happen 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 years, 5 years. But what it does is give us statistical data to look at it and see how it's going. Tonight is not the night to try to start doing that, and we haven't done anything. So you guys are tired. We are about as tired as you are to make a decision for the city, and that's our responsibility. Listen, you just have to make a decision sometime and go forward and do it, as opposed to keep kicking it down the street. You got to make a decision. Nobody's perfect, but I think we're in a good spot right now, where we are right now. So, again, in closing, I will be supporting A. I will not be supporting an amendment, and I hope we can get the support we need tonight to get this passed. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman Carroll. And I'd like to also make a comment on this ordinance, proposed ordinance. I was elected to the council roughly about a year and 4 months ago. With regard to parking boats at residence, the UZC was amended before I got on the council. I believe that all council persons see the need to solve this particular problem. So during that process, early on, we actually formed a boat committee, and by then Councilman Klein, and served on it was myself and Councilman Segur, so it was the three of us. But everybody, I want to make that perfectly clear, everybody on this council had good positive effects on this and the outcome. We all tried our darndest to come up with some solutions to satisfy everyone we possibly could. That was our ultimate goal, and I think we've achieved the best we could. We had approximately 8, somebody said tonight we had 9 formal meetings throughout the city. We did a rodeo, if you will, going throughout the city. We could have possibly did a poll or survey or something to that, but it was going to be a cost issue. Who was going to pay for it? Who was going to, that type of thing. So what we did is we had 8 or 9 meetings throughout the city, and we got the feel for what is going on throughout the city. And to me, that's what it's all about. We have to, that's our job, and that's what we did. So we went out throughout the city, and we did just that. It was the most effective and cost-effective manner that we could do to achieve our goal. And I want to commend all the citizens who attended these meetings, as well as our council meetings here. There's several of y'all. Tonight, we had 8 people come to the microphone and make comment tonight. That's outstanding. This is an issue near and dear to your hearts. We get that. And it's a shame that you have to go through all this, but it's a part of the process. Some of y'all even had 100% attendance. That's unbelievable. So I commend all of y'all for taking part in the process. We then drafted 2 pieces of legislation as a result of all that. And we tried to meet the needs of all the citizens. And I think we did do that in both those pieces of legislation. Of course, one of the pieces of legislation went through planning, and both of them went through planning and zoning, but one of them in particular got favored by planning and zoning, and I understand the vote was 7-0. And that is 9A. That is what everybody that came up to the microphone tonight, they supported. Well, the day has come where the city council, we finally have the opportunity to make a decision. And I stand here tonight and I want to make sure that y'all know that I am going to vote in favor of 9A. Again, I want to thank all those citizens who voiced their concern, whether you like boats or you don't like boats. That's a part of the process, and I appreciate that y'all got involved. We as legislators try to do our best to accommodate the majority of folks in all these types of matters. And again, I will be supporting 9A without amendments. Thank you. Next up, we have Councilman Klein.
Thank you, Mr. President. We had 9 meetings, or 8 meetings, whatever it was. It was a bunch of meetings. Normally 30 or 40 people or more attended each meeting. The vast majority of the people were for the boat issue, to leave their boats alone, let them keep it in front of their houses, et cetera. And the people who heard today, the vast majority of them were in favor of that and were not in favor of the amendment. We, as a council and as an administration, do not want to kick this issue down the street anymore, because this issue hasn't been just going on for a year or 2. It's been going on for 6 or 8 years. And today, we're going to solve it, at least on a temporary basis, by, and I will be supporting Amendment A, 9A also. So we think we can get this thing resolved today and no longer put the can or kick the can down the street. So I, too, will be voting for 9A, and I will be withdrawing 9B.
Thank you, Councilman Klein. And next, we have Councilman Hand.
Thank you, Council President. Well, I came on board right at the very last meeting to the council, and the team invited me to that last meeting, and my heart went out to everyone who came later that night and told me their stories personally. So I'm glad that night I was ready to make a move, but I was, only a few days here. So, but I'm glad that tonight, I think we're going to get this resolved, and I am definitely for this also. So I do appreciate everybody coming here tonight and voicing their opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hand. Next, we have Councilwoman DeFranchise.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank our city attorneys. I know how hard they work to make this happen. I know we didn't have just 2, by the way. We actually had 6 that they worked upon. 2 of them actually went before Planning and Zoning of the 6, and 2 of them here are on agenda tonight. But I think everyone needs to know how hard they worked to make this happen, and I just wanted to say thank you to them for their hard work. I also want to again thank all of the people in the audience, all of the boat owners, because you all gave your voice to what, and let us know what we needed to hear. And not only tonight, because some of you I called personally and encouraged you all to come tonight, as you know, so we could hear your voices and your opinions. But I want to thank you for all the many meetings you did attend. And I was at most of them, so I know you were there as well. And I think tonight you're going to be satisfied. We're going to move forward. We're going to take the vote on it, and it's going to be done. And I will be supporting 9A as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilman Segura, you have the floor for closing.
Thank you. Well, I want to thank all my council members that spoke up tonight in favor of this to assure y'all that this is where it will go now. And we just in short say thank you again for this fabulous journey of democracy. We certainly welcome it on all issues, and we will have some other issues coming up that I certainly would like to see you participate, as you've done with this one, to help us as a whole, as a body, know which way to go on it. So with that said, I want to, again, thank y'all and look forward to the next issue, and let's vote now.
Madam Clerk?
Council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 9B. Item 9B is a public hearing regarding summary ordinance number 12,349, an ordinance amending the City of Kenner Unified Development Code, Section 7.11 and 5.04, regarding the storage of recreational vehicles and recreational watercraft. Mr. Chairman, I've received a request tonight and a motion by Councilmember Klein, seconded by Councilmember Segura, on an indefinite deferral. Any discussion? Council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0.
Next.
Item 10 is opening of bids. We have none. Item 11 is reclassification of zoning. We have none. Item 12 is other ordinances for final passage. We have none. Item 13 is resolutions and motions by council members. Item 13A is a resolution calling a public hearing to determine whether the structures located at 1401 West Esplanade Avenue, parcel A, 3A, 1A1, Canes Brule subdivision, Hollywood Center 9, Kenner, Louisiana, shall be abated by repair, rehabilitation, demolition, or removal. I have a motion by Councilmember Klein, seconded by Councilmember DeFranchise. Mr. Chairman, I've received a request tonight from the Code Enforcement Department for an amendment on this piece. They had a typographical error. I'd like to amend the first whereas, change the date from January 23rd, 2018 to April 2nd, 2018. I have a motion by Councilmember Klein, seconded by Councilmember DeFranchise to amend. Council members, please vote on the amendment. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0 for the amendment. Back to your original motion as amended. Motion by Councilmember Klein, seconded by Councilmember DeFranchise. Council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 13B is a resolution calling a public hearing to determine whether the structures located at 2305 Kansas Avenue in Kenner, Louisiana shall be abated by repair, rehabilitation, demolition, or removal. I have a motion by Councilmember Segura, seconded by Councilmember Wilmot. Council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 14 is items removed from the consent agenda. We have none. Item 15 is acceptance of contracts and similar matters approved by the mayor. Item 15A is summary ordinance number 12,356. An ordinance approving change order number 1, 2, 3, and 4, final to the contract with Barrier Construction Company, LLC, dated July 26, 2017, regarding Chateau Boulevard resurfacing, state project number H.011007, federal aid project number H.011007, Kenner Public Works project number 2014-007-RB for a net increase of $55,117,076, resulting in a total contract amount of $750,695.64, and to accept the contract as substantially complete for the Department of Public Works. I have a motion by Councilmember Klein, seconded by Councilmember DeFranchise.
Got somebody at the podium here.
Councilwoman DeFranchise?
Do you mind, Mr.?
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
Thank you.
Ladies first.
I think we need to explain, first of all, why there's a net increase. Would the administration like to, someone from the administration like to explain about the increase, please?
There are 4 change orders we're talking about here, and the first one is no additional money on that one. That was just changing some provisions of the contract. The second one was for the contractor to go out and do additional topo survey. That stretch of roadway, as you know, was very up and down along the barrier curb. And we wanted to get additional elevation so we could properly define the limits of curb removal and replacement. Number 3 was all of that was related to the broken water line right after the freeze. Number 4 was, as a result of getting all that additional survey information, we went ahead and removed 330 linear feet of additional curb. Well, actually, we pinned on curb to increase the height. I believe that was something that you asked us to look at as well.
Yes, thank you. Council President, may I ask a question of the mayor? Mr. Mayor, you and I spoke about the problem with the increase that resulted from the water main break during our agenda meeting, and you and I had spoken about possibly going to Jefferson Parish and asking for them to absorb part of the cost. Is that not correct?
Totally correct. I agree with you. I have not reached out yet to, unfortunately, the administration informed us that it was our bill. I totally disagree with the parish administration.
too.
I'm going to reach out to our parish councilman. I'm not putting him on the spot. I usually say both of them, but this is not Mark Spears' district. This would be Dominic's district. So I'll reach out to Councilman Vestata. I'll ask for Mark's support also, Councilman Spears. But I feel that while the contractor caused the problem, it's still their water that
Water main too.
exactly that messed us up. So I would offer at least to them that to the parish council that we would like to at least split it. I mean, I don't think that they're responsible for the whole thing, Councilwoman. I think you and I agreed on that
We
earlier.
did. We
But I
did.
don't think we're responsible for the whole thing either.
No.
But for the record, the parish administration said it was our responsibility. So I disagree with the parish administration. I'm going to go to our parish council people who actually have the real ability and power there to make that decision and help us.
And I wanted the people of Kenner to know that we were on total agreement on that issue of working together to make
Absolutely.
sure that the Jefferson Parish assumes part of the responsibility. And I wanted people to know that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councilwoman DeFranchise. Councilman Reno.
No, you can go ahead. Go ahead, Councilman.
Thank you, Al. Thank you, Mr. President. I just have one question on this increase. Because this is a federal aid project, does that mean that part of this increase is being paid for through that federal aid? So the city's only paying their match amount, is that correct?
That's correct.
And-
We're paying 20%.
So we're only paying 20% of the 55,000, and the rest is being billed or being reimbursed to us by the federal aid?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, it's an 80-20 split, yes.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you for that, Councilman Reno. Mr. Murillo.
Al Morella, 4260 East Loyola Drive, 5th District, 46 years. That's what I was up here for, to get an explanation on this change order. Listening to the Public Works Director, some of these things is listed in that change order, and I understand what the mayor just said about that water line or whatever it was that they damaged. But some of the other things that's contained in this change order, couldn't some of this have been done when the bid was submitted during the bid process? If they did they research or they checked out what the job was going to entail before they submitted their bid? In other words, what my point is, could anything that's costing more money now okay, have been scoped out and included in the bid when the bid was submitted? That's my question to you, Public Works.
Go ahead, Mr. Sharana.
I think based on the documents that the contractor bid on, that no, he couldn't have anticipated all these changes.
Okay.
You know, when a survey is completed out there, they go out and take elevations only every so often. And the additional elevations that were taken by the contractor were between the elevations that were actually taken by the project surveyor.
Okay, thank you. Anybody got any comments, any questions? Thank you.
Councilman Carroll?
Yes.
Al Morello?
Mr. Morrell, I have a comment. As it relates to your question, which is a good question about could it have been prevented? I think if the company or the individual would have acknowledged or knew about it, then it would have been included in the cost, which probably would have increased it at that point. Now it looks like, you know, we're at the last minute jumping in on it. But I'm not a contractor, I'm not an engineer, but had it been identified, I'm sure it would have been put into the specs, which would have increased the cost. So if you do a better job up front, then it doesn't look like, you know, coming at the back end trying to do it.
Absolutely, Councilman Carroll. That, you know, that makes, you know, casts a little shadow on the whole operation. That's my point exactly, you know. So it's better to get it all done when you submit the bid. That way there's no kind of controversy. People won't think there's some controversy. Well, why couldn't they have done this in the beginning when they submitted the bid?
Right.
There's a lot of controversy floating all around this area anyway when it comes to the public bid process and the RFP process.
So, you know, going forward, all we can do is in the future is along with the Public Works and the contractors to identify and to do a better job each time that they go out and do an estimate on
My
something.
point exactly, Councilman Carroll. Thank you for that, for those comments. And, you know, like I said, a lot of people, including myself, I'm in that number, thinks that the public bid process and the RFP process is somewhat flawed. Okay? So thank you for responding.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Councilman Carroll. Madam Clerk?
Council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 15B is summary ordinance number 12,357. An ordinance accepting the lowest responsive bid received from New Light Electrical for an annual contract to provide electrical supplies on an as-needed basis in accordance with sealed bid number 17-6412 in an amount not to exceed $200,000 per year for the Department of Public Works. I have a motion by Councilmember Segur, seconded by Councilmember Wilmot. Council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 15C is summary ordinance number 12,358. An ordinance accepting the lowest responsive bid received from Han Enterprises Incorporated to furnish and install a new playground at Wentwood Adult Gym in accordance with sealed bid number 18-6418 and an amount not to exceed $34,949 for the Department of Parks and Recreation. I have a motion by Councilmember Hand, seconded by Councilmember DeFranchis. Council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 15D is a resolution approving change order number 1 to the agreement with Crown Architectural Metal Company, LLC, dated July 18, 2017, for additional roof repairs to Rivertown Main Theater for a net increase of $3,602, resulting in a total contract amount of $158,602 for the Department of Parks and Recreation. I have a motion by Councilmember Carroll, seconded by Councilmember Wilmot.
Councilman Reyno, do you have a question?
Yes.
You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is going to totally fix the roof over the Rivertown Theater. So with this increase, basically that's all the work that needs to be done, and they will have a watertight roof. Is that correct? Anybody that wants to answer? Okay, because, you know, I mean, they've been having a problem with this since they signed the initial lease back prior to this administration, and I just want to make sure that.
250? Yeah, we've put $250,000 into that roof repair. That better fix it.
Okay, so it's totally fixed, done, this is it. This
Best
is
we
the-
can tell, it's totally fixed and done.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Very good.
Council members,
Yep.
please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0.
Next.
Item 16 is ordinances and resolutions in summary for first reading. Item 16A is an ordinance approving the sale of a portion of the unimproved California Avenue right-of-way Highway Park subdivision, Kenner Jefferson Parish, Louisiana, as shown on the attached survey by Gilbert Kelly and Coudray Incorporated dated October 28, 2017. Item 17 is reports from the council and our special committees.
Councilman Reno?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to announce that there is an annual prayer breakfast in Jefferson Parish, the Jefferson Prayer Breakfast. And the keynote speaker for this breakfast coming up at the end of this month, it'll be held on April 30th from 7 to 8:30 a.m. at the Copeland Tower or Landmark Hotel, depending on how you recognize that building. But the feature speaker for this prayer breakfast is Congressman Steve Scalise. So if anybody is interested, they can, individual tickets are $35. They can call one of these two numbers, 985-626-9582 or 504-450-8198, and they can get you information. And if you can't reach anybody there, you can always call my council office, and we'll be happy to forward that flyer to you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman Reno. Councilman Carroll, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I want to apologize to Public Works by asking this question. Normally, I give you a call to talk about it so we can settle this stuff. But my question is relating to Hollanday Street and in the city of Kenner by the airport, also known as Uber Drive, with all the traffic that travels along there. But I can remember a few months ago about some monies being allocated to repair Hollanday from Jefferson to, I think, Kenner Avenue. And I haven't seen any movement on that. Are you prepared to give some status on that, where we are and where we're going to go? Thank you, sir.
That project has been bid, and we do have a low bidder on that project. We will be conducting a pre-construction meeting within the next couple of weeks, and after that, we'll issue notice to proceed. And it is from South Kenner Avenue to Airline. That's the stretch that we'll be repairing.
So from Kenner Avenue to Airline?
Yes.
Going north. It's not going to go, because the other side is in pretty good shape.
It's in a lot better shape.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you, sir. Please, could you just make sure you let me know about this for the meetings? I like to go to at least a couple of them to talk about it, and just to be on point, to be able to understand when this is going to happen so we can get notices out to people, because this is one of the few streets that still allows traffic to go from Jefferson Highway to the airline, since they shut down a number of the crossing for the railroad. So you can imagine once they start the construction, it's limited access, and it will be a good idea to let people know it's coming.
We'll extend an invitation to you early so you can invite as many others as you'd like.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilman Reno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I did forget one other thing that's important for a lot of people this time of year, because we start to have these little festivals and stuff. The Treasure Chest begins their annual crawfish boil at the Treasure Chest Casino. They have live music, and a good portion of the proceeds go to different local charities. It's $10 a plate, and you get all the fixings with that. So that is the first of those. They usually do 3 or 4 of them in the spring. The first one is this Friday at 6:30 p.m. at the Treasure Chest Casino. And we'd like to thank them for partnering with the city of Kenner in putting on these types of events. So thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Councilman
President.
Reno. Next, Madam Clerk.
Item 18 is new business. We have none. Item 19 is unfinished business and/or motions to reconsider or remove from a tabled position. We have none. Item 20 is persons wishing to address the council on special subject matters.
Mr. Morella, name and address, sir.
Al Morella, 4260 East Loyola Drive, 5th District, 46 years. First of all, I want to open by thanking the 969 citizens who supported me in the election on March the 24th. And I don't only want to thank them, I want to commend them for refusing to allow the special interest money and influence to control their vote. And by the way, that was 9% out of a little over 10,000 votes cast out of 48,000 registered voters. Now, at the last council meeting, I want to thank Chris for giving me the figures on that one event at the Pontchartrain Center. However, there was 3 other ones for the month of March, and I'm still waiting on those figures. Also, this weekend, they kick off the book sale for the library, and I'd like to get the figures with how the Pontchartrain Center is going to be impacted, as well as the city of Kenner. Another thing, a movie that was shot in our city back on March the 28th, the Chateau Country Club catered the people, private property, and the parking lot across the street from the blighted Pavilion Shopping Center was used as a staging area, more private property. But I'd like to know what the economic impact was for the city of Kenner as it relates to permits. Because even though it's private property, I'm sure they have to have permits from the city of Kenner. Okay? So now I'd like to get the figures on that as well when they're available to y'all. And talking about the Pontchartrain Center, the reason why I keep talking about it is they're pretty busy down there, and I'm glad to see that. So I think what we need to do is reevaluate, come budget hearings next month, that subsidy that we subsidizing them down there. I think it's time now we seriously consider cutting that subsidy off. That money could be well spent elsewhere in our city. Now, I want to thank Attorney Lee Roussel for the information I requested from the last council meeting concerning the parking on public property. Now, the opinion that came back was that a CEA, a cooperative endeavor agreement between a nonprofit and the city, that they can do that. So now, as a result, whenever the Friends of Rivertown or any other nonprofit in this city that charges people to park on public property, I would like the head of that organization to come down here and tell us how much money was generated from them parking fees and how it's being spent to promote our city, whether it's Rivertown or any other part of the city of Kenner. Anybody got any comments, any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, the mayor would like to speak.
Mr. Mayor, you have the floor.
So, Mr. Morella, you're okay with charging the park now, as long as it creates a revenue?
Well, if it's, the opinion was that it's legal.
Right.
Mayor, so if it's legal, then it's got to be fine with me as long as it's legal.
Good.
But I want some accountability on what, how much money was raised from the parking fees
that's
and
fine.
how it's being spent to promote our city.
No,
I want accountability.
Right.
Now that we found out it's legal, now I want accountability as to what's going on with the money.
You okay
This
with
is
the
people's hard-earned money
you're
who
okay
work
with the
hard every
legal-
day to put food on the table.
You're okay with the legal opinion? I'm just making
Yeah,
sure,
I'm okay with
because
the legal
It makes it
opinion.
a lot easier for us just to get the revenue generated to continue to improve that parking lot, keep maintenance on that parking lot. Just like, I mean, if you go to New Orleans, parking meters are there.
Right.
I've always found this kind of a
Right.
silly issue because people park by a parking meter, news alert, it's on a
I
public
understand.
street. So obviously it's okay, but to have your support for it, now it makes it a lot easier for us just to answer the question that, what does it generate for our city? Which is all
That's
we've
right.
been trying to do.
Accountability for the money.
Right.
When it comes
Which
to
I don't-
taxpayers' money, Mayor, I want accountability.
Which I don't think we've ever had a problem giving you those numbers. Would you,
That's right.
Would you agree?
Well, there's no problem, there's no problem.
Great, thank you.
Yes, sir. Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morella. Councilman Carroll, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ms. Morell, I have a comment for you relating to the same question you had asked, and I just want some clarity. about asking me at a meeting a number of months ago. But first, I'd like to thank Attorney Roussel for responding to you, responding to both of us. And the way the sequence went, that you posed a question, and then I think it was between the mayor and I who answered the question.
Yeah.
And then following that, Mr. Ziwi submitted a letter on your, not on your behalf, but saying that you had asked a question he wanted to know. And Attorney Roussel, she sent the answer back to Mr. Ziwi, and we did not send a correspondence to you. So I couldn't remember, but she helped me remember. You have the information, so that is what happened.
Right.
So I was involved. So hopefully now she helped us out. You have the information. Mr. Ziwi, he had the information within 3 weeks after he posed the question. It's just that I never gave the information back to you during that time. So now you have it. I'm glad that you have it, and we go forth to the next question.
Thank you, Councilman. Can I respond briefly?
Sure.
Okay. First of all, for the record, I had no communication with Mr. Ziwi. Obviously, he tuned in to YouTube and saw the replay of the council meeting when I asked that question. So I want to make it perfectly clear there was no communication between me and Mr. Ziwi. He tuned in and saw the meeting, and that's why he submitted that letter. I want to make that perfectly clear for the record. Anybody else while I'm up here?
Duly noted, Mr. Morella.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morella. Next, we have Mr. Greg Teff. Mr. Teff waves. Mr. Ed Horner. He's gone. Mr. Fred Miller. Name and address.
Fred Miller, 4005 Delaware. First off, Mr. Mayor, Mr. President, council members, I'd like to thank y'all for the way y'all handled this boating issue. It took a long, drawn-out affair, a lot of hard work on everybody's part.
Thank you.
And y'all know me from that, but that don't mean I'm going to disappear from here. I may not become as well-known as Al, but I'm going to stick around and
Is that famous or infamous? I don't know which one that's going to be.
I'll leave that up to you, council member. But anyway, I'd like to thank y'all for that. And I know the code enforcement people worked hard on it also. So thank them also. And that's all I got to say.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Mr. Dennis Bergeron. And he waves. Pastor Jackie Cochran.
Okay.
Name and address, ma'am.
Good evening. Pastor Jackie Brown Cockerham, 2610 Decatur Street, Apartment A, Kenner, Louisiana, 70062. First, I'd like to say good evening and to thank the constituents of Kenner for voting for me for council in District 1. Unfortunately, I didn't get my seat. Greg. But I'd just like to say, to reiterate about the airport. Airport expansion road, they're still knocking and beating early in the mornings, not as much, but at 2 and 5 o'clock a.m. it's still ridiculous. And I'm expecting my council people to do something to communicate in some way to Orleans Parish that it is disrespectful to us, that we deserve better, we deserve more. There's no reason to be drilling and honking those little backup trucks and activity at 2 and 5 a.m. in the morning. Totally unfair. We're dealing with all kind of problems, respiratory problems. I know you probably can tell with me because of inhalants and contaminants that are out there in the airway. The other thing is our ugly temporary wall. Please, we need to have something to hide the ugly pilings, the pipes, and the concrete barricades that are there. It just makes that area of Decatur Street look bad. And I'd appreciate it. So with the other residents there, if you will find a way to get some type of opaque tarp or something and put there, that makes it look decent. It just really looks bad, and we don't like it at all, code enforcement. Are there any questions? Any suggestions for help?
Councilman
Any
Carroll.
support?
Councilman Carroll has a remark.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Pastor Brown, for coming again, and thanks for your comments. And, you know, obviously, this will be a marathon up until 2019. That's when this project is said to will be finished in 2019. That's their goal to do it. So this, along with some other issues I'm sure are going to be coming up, we appreciate your comments and concerns between now and the end of the project, because there will be some concerns. There are concerns going on now, and to be able to keep us abreast of it, along with Public Works, along with administration, along with code. Every department within the city of Kenner will be involved in this to ensure that it is something that is conducive and safe to the citizens of Kenner, particularly to the people who live in the Veteran Heights, Susan Park area. That's right there.
Yes.
So I will be speaking to you about that, other members of it, trying to give updates accordingly as we move forward. I wasn't fortunate enough to go to a meeting in Baton Rouge today, but the mayor and his administration was, and I think there's some information that I think starting now for us to be able to share with the public is important. And if Mr. Mayor doesn't mind, I'd appreciate some of your comments.
Thank you, Councilman Carroll. We actually went Monday and Tuesday. A number of council people went along with us, and also some council-elect members went with us. I appreciate also our chief of police and my administrative staff and the legal department. On Monday, we actually went to a meeting before the committee meeting talking about the Garvey bonds. The Garvey bonds are what's going to actually finance the flyover. Backing up from that, we had a meeting before that with Secretary Wilson to express the need that this is absolutely a Kenner issue and nobody else. Great relationships with Mayor-elect LaToya Cantrell, but she understands the need. We've expressed this to Jefferson Parish, that this is a Kenner issue. We call on our council people, like I said before, we need to. That was expressed in the meeting. That was expressed again by me to Secretary Wilson, who understands that. And by the time it got to the committee, actually that meeting was very, very helpful, because we let them know that we are in full support of the flyover, but not at the expense of District 1 or District 5 and the rest of the city of Kenner. But you two, Councilman-elect Brennan will be here by that time. Sorry, Councilwoman Hand. But for you, and also for Brian Brennan and for Kelly right now, these are the things that, and of course, all this council that's coming in, and this council is dealing with it right now, we cannot suffer the cluster of that traffic. And it's not fair to District 1, it's not fair to District 5 or anybody in the city of Kenner. We expressed that in the meeting before that. We told them that the relocation of the fire station, we don't want to mix it up with the Garvey bonds. The Garvey bonds is for the flyover, but the relocation of the fire station, if that's not funded by the state, there will be no reason for a flyover, because we need that fire station also put for your district, particularly, no city of Kenner, but predominantly for your district. By the time we got to the committee meeting, I'm happy to say that maybe Secretary Wilson is the only person that spoke, if I remember. He made a great presentation. I was prepared to speak. The administration of the parish was going to stay out of it, and we were going to express what we needed. At that point, I got to give credit to, I believe, Senator Alario and Senator Martini. I believe Alario made the motion. I think Martini did the second. There was no reason for discussion. They approved the Garvey bonds. Now, that's only the first step. That has to go now to they have to negotiate with the feds. With that in mind, we expressed the next day again, we went to the regular meetings. That was not part of our, Jefferson Parish days. The next day we went, we expressed again the importance of relocation of the fire station. I think they're getting the message. I mean, we probably had 14, 15 people there on Monday, elected officials, incoming officials, administration, and legal. They're getting the message. And this is all I've been doing since last year, with the help of this council, of course, but we have been expressing, all of us have been expressing, we support the airport, we support the expansion of the airport, but not at your expense. And we have made that clear. And we're, we still hear these things that you're saying, Pastor, and I'm telling you, we're going to work on that also, because we're starting to finally get recognized a little bit here in the city of Kenner, that we're not going to be just the stepping stone for the airport. No disrespect to the city of New Orleans incoming administration. I believe LaToya Cantrell, I know LaToya Cantrell, is hearing what our cries. She's hearing what we're expressing, and she absolutely gets it. I'm hoping that the airport gets it. I'm hoping that they understand, the state, I think the state understands, that they need to relocate our fire station, but make sure that we address those needs also. Now, this has been 2 days of work that I did like in less than 5 minutes, but that kind of brings you up to date where we are. But know that, just because we're moving forward here doesn't mean that we've forgotten you on the other things. We've gotten that part out the way. Let us go back to them now, this Tuesday coming, and start expressing more about what's going on right now with the lack of infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Pastor, just to segue into that, just to give you an idea of the number of challenges, the number of issues going on that will encompass all of us. And particularly not just on the north side, but even on the south side on Airline Highway, there's a new airport director, Director Dolio. I've also have met with the mayor-elect, Cantrell, and she understands. She's in a different situation because she doesn't take office until May. So when she comes on, she's getting enough information from the mayor and administration. I met with her about our concerns and everything. The new director has also. So it's a number of us still talking. Maybe we don't say enough about it, but I think we will start saying enough about it to inform people, to inform the residents, and to inform everyone from the airline all the way to veterans. So thanks for your question. It's kind of prompted that. And going forward, we will be sharing more information as it relates to that entire project. And because, like I said, they say 2019, it should be ready and to go. So, the best laid plans of mice and men, as someone once said. So we'll see. But we'll be keeping in contact. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
I have a question for Mayor Zahn, though. In the future, the very near future, do you intend to invite some of the citizens of District 1, myself included, to be a part of your attendance at the legislative hearings?
I'm going to definitely ask if you can take the next road trip with us, or the road trip that's going to address more of this. And if I can legally do that and get you to go with us, I have no problem opening up to a spokesperson from District 1 who has been the face of this cry out up against, not against the airport, but making sure that the airport understands that, and that would fall on you. So let me make sure that I can absolutely do that, because we're guests already. I got to make sure how far I can extend that guest list. But if I can, you have my commitment, yes.
Okay, but if you see me there and I'm not on your guest list, you understand that? I'm going to put forth some effort to get there.
I got to get you in. 'Cause
Right,
this is
right,
this is the delegation meetings, not on the floor. So,
delegation
that's where I would need to get you in with us. And if I can do that, like I said, you have my word. We'll do that with you.
Okay, all right.
All right?
Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Jackie. Councilman Segura.
Thank you. Just to follow up. Testing, okay. Pastor, just to follow that up, and Mayor, I understand her issue is probably not as applicable to the legislative because they've already, the airport's there and we just trying to wrap it up. Perhaps we could schedule a meeting with the airport contractors to get her concerns where we locally, because I know we've had this comment before that I know Councilman Carroll, myself and others would like to hear from the contractor on some of these issues. So that might be a direction to try to go to get more quicker answers, because the legislative body is just looking to pass laws that are coming up before them, and none of these really are for the airport that's going on right now.
I want to go to Baton Rouge.
Oh, no, you're welcome to go. I'm just saying, but.
I want to hear what they have to say.
No way, we're not trying to tell you don't go.
All
I'm just
right,
saying that that's
okay,
not
all
really
right.
to get an answer for what your concern is by your house. So, but us getting the contractor here will be.
Okay.
So, And also, too, just before we close, I'm thank you.
Okay, thank you.
That I would be just a little remiss if I didn't take a moment and recognize two of our council member-elect that are in the office in the audience right now. So we have Councilwoman at large, Christy McKinney, and Brian Brennan from District 5. So hope to see y'all at all of these meetings till you get sworn in, so you can be ready to go. Thank y'all.
Thank you. And do I have a motion?
Moved.
Moved. Do I have a second? Second. We're adjourned.